start recording. Welcome everybody. This is the IOTA Discord, IOTA Shimmer Discord, IOTA Shimmer Community Governance Call on Thursday, the 9th of March. Happy that you showed up here. And today, some news again, some little progress to show again. I've shared it before already in the governance channel. Basically, we have now a draft document, which is the operation agreement for the potential Shimmer Treasury DAO that would be set up in the Marshall Islands if the community votes to set up this treasury and use the Shimmer tokens. Then this whole thing would go into a legally created entity in the Marshall Islands. And we've done quite some work over the last couple of weeks on this document. It's basically the version that we want to send into to Marshall Islands. Basically, there is the company that's called MeDAO, which is acting as an agent for communities and for projects to basically be the connector between the Marshall Island government and the projects that want to establish a DAO in the Marshall Islands. And MeDAO is basically, has established, first of all, this legislation and the rules and the laws in Marshall Island together with the Marshall Island government. And so basically they make their business model to be kind of a service provider for all kind of communities and projects that want to establish a DAO under the legislation of the Marshall Islands. So basically the plan will be that we will submit this operation agreement for their review. We have been already in quite some contact, especially through the lawyer that we have engaged with Adam Miller from MeDAO to clarify a lot, because of course there's a lot of questions always popping up when you go through such legal documents. And so we could clarify already a lot, but there still needs to be kind of a final review, and then there needs to be, if the vote would happen, first of all, they will ask for some money, of course, to start submitting this to the government. And then it needs to be accepted by the Marshall Island government in the form that we submit. Maybe they will have ask for some changes or something, but usually when this is the service that MeDAO provides, basically when they have reviewed it and say that works, then it should also work for the Marshall Island government. And because everything open is always good, so I thought, okay, let's go through some of the most important parts of the doc, because it's quite complex, and even if you try to read it, not everything might be easy to understand. So maybe it's the best thing to highlight a couple of stuff that are part of this document. And
maybe I'll just want to say real quick, Vilo, and this is kind of as much as we can do on the operating agreement. Really, the next step is giving it to the Marshall Islands, MyDAO, and having them either review it, and if they approve it, then they would hand it to the Marshall Islands. Problem is, we need two things for that. We need one, to sign a letter of intent, which essentially would be the program lead. So we have to wait till that vote happens. And then two would be paying them for the year, which again, we need access to the treasury. So we need to wait for that vote to happen. So we've done as much as we can ahead of time to shorten the lead time, which just creating this, I think we've been working on it for 3 to 4 weeks to ensure that, it's essentially legal terms of what the framework is really what it comes down to. But now we're kind of, I'm gonna have a meeting with Paulo and kind of look at, can we go on to the next documents, which when I got the quote was the AML, money laundering, that we need, and then the privacy statement, GDPR, and also potentially a website contract. So we'll try to get as much done as we can before the vote, as it looks like, it's going to be positive, and if it's not, then then this has all been
A
a
good,
waste of time.
a good.
Let's hope it
No,
doesn't
no,
go
not
that
a
way.
waste of time. It was a good. It would have been a really good learning because actually, learning how to do this kind of legal framing, I mean, it's quite complex because
Mm,
we are trying basically to do the impossible, to fit
mm.
to
Yeah.
fit an
Well, and I always.
organization that basically doesn't want to be ruled by laws and governments into the rules and laws of a government. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. And I mean, ultimately, even if we didn't have the treasury down the road, I mean, let's just say worst case example, if it ever happened, it may not, but if the IF, ran out of funding, then we would need to have a community DAO governance structure, which we'd then fall back onto this system. So it's good to get this out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, maybe I will just go through a couple of stuff. So this is quite a long document. I won't read it loud for you or everything, but trying to highlight a couple of important things. This whole thing starts with some opening words, and then basically it describes in Article 1, it describes the organization. Yeah. Um, so basically, the members agree that this organization is formed as a non-profit limited liability company under the Marshall Islands Non-Profit Act. The Non-Profit Act is basically their LLC law that describes companies that operate on a non-profit basis, and a limited liability company. I think everybody should know in Germany it's called a GmbH. So basically, this is a legal setting that reduces or limits the legal liability of its members to a very small or certain degree. Yeah, and this is the important part why you want to have something like this, because um, you need to protect the members of this organization, of the Treasury Committee, the voters, from potential lawsuits that might occur in the future on any actions that the Treasury is doing. Yeah, and you never know. There are always stupid people outside in the world that want to sue you for something. And without this legal framework that basically limits the liability of all the members that are part of this organization, every single member could be personally liable for all the actions that this treasury takes with his full personal belongings and house and wife and kids and everything. And nobody basically wants to operate anything under such a potential risk. Yeah. And so that's the main thing why we decided to set up a legal entity and to establish a DAO under a legal framework, is to be protected as much as possible by a legal framework, and to mitigate risk for the members of this organization. Registered office, registered agent, these are standard things. Basically, it says that the agent will be the one that we set up with MiDAO, principal office stuff, terms that says that this whole thing works and when it starts. Um, Article 2, the purposes and power. Yeah, so clearly is important that the company shall be a non-profit entity with the meaning of the Non-Profit Act, that later on, here it is more defined, is organized exclusively for charitable and educational purposes and not for profit. Yeah, so and then this is something that we put in here, and to make it really clarified that basically the purpose of this company, they call it always company, but it is the DAO, is to operate the grants program, which is called the Shimmer Community Treasury Grant Committee, which issues grants related to Web3, decentralized finance, or crypto in general. So this is a clear purpose and definition what this DAO entity should do. automatically it excludes all kind of other stuff. So it's a bit of the thing that the Treasury Committee is basically not allowed under this legal framework to do anything else than operating the Shimmer Community Treasury Grant Committee, because basically this is what the voters will vote the committee to be existing. They don't vote the committee to um, to develop a new cryptocurrency and stuff like this. This is out of the scope of what the voters have decided, and so we also excluded all these things out of the scope of what the company can do, to make sure basically that this is the framework in which the DAO will operate. Yeah. And whenever you have some questions, just hop in and disrupt me. Yeah. Blah blah blah. This is all legal things. Legal things. Limitation of the company activities, and this is something that we are still working on. There was a quite a strange paragraph here, which is coming from the template that the Marshall Island uses, that basically says that you are not allowed to interfere with any legislation or jurisdiction, and you're not allowed to do propaganda and stuff like this, or influence political processes. We are basically removing all this strange wording and putting basically in here just something that we shall not operate outside of the European Convention of Human Rights, or basically not operate in anything unlawful. But Marshall Island had a strange clause here inside, that we didn't want to have in our operational agreement. It's kind of a political stuff, but yeah, it's better we remove it, and we'll see if it's get accepted like this.
This will be a question for Adam, because it came from a template, so it may be something that Marshall Islands required, but requires and just need to get clarification on what the propaganda. We think it's probably like, if a really expensive, rich company forms there, they can influence politics because it's such a small nation there.
And
But we'll find.
I basically think it's basically says, okay, that you should not have a company there that is starting to influence the politic of the Marshall Islands directly.
Yeah.
I think this is why they put it in there. They want to protect themselves and their political system from outside influence taking over. And so this is potentially, we will have to add some statement like this, that basically the company is not allowed to influence any politics in the Marshall Islands. And I would be okay with that, because basically we don't care what actually happens in the Marshall Islands, but we should not be excluded from supporting political work or influence legislations like European. I mean, with something like this, you wouldn't be allowed to fund an initiative that wants to work in the European Union to get favorable laws for crypto and DLT. And this, I mean, this is not something that we think would, but don't want to exclude things like this to happen in the future. Yeah. So this is something like JD said, this needs to be checked, and we'll get feedback on that. Then a very important part is members. So basically, who is a member of this DAO LLC? And we defined it as broad as possible to basically membership shall be limited to those individuals and entities that holds Shimmer tokens. Basically, every Shimmer token holder is automatically a member of this organization as soon as he receives, buys, purchases, or owns a single Shimmer token. And this is actually a good thing, because automatically all actions that Shimmer tokens holders do under the rule set that is included in this operational agreement, and as long as this doesn't go against some laws or stuff like this, um, would be covered by this limited liability protection. So any governance vote that we'll do in the future with Shimmer tokens would fall under this membership protection, because basically what we have done is that we have included the Shimmer governance framework, which defines all the governance process in the Shimmer network, as a alleged rule set of this DAO. Meaning that as long as we take out a governance decision and follow the governance process that we have designed in the governance framework, all actions of the members should be covered and should be under the liability protection shield of this LLC. Even if it doesn't have something to do with the treasury, actually, I would even say that all votes that we do following the governance framework are covered through the liability protection of this LLC, which is basically a good thing just in case. Yeah. We also already included anything, not only Shimmer tokens on the Tangle, but also Shimmer tokens on layer 2. So because we will have the EVM, we will have chains, we will have smart contracts, and people will not only have their Shimmer tokens sitting on the Tangle, a lot of people hopefully will engage in DeFi and stuff like this. And so you will have also Shimmer tokens in your MetaMask address on the EVM. And so also these Shimmer tokens, if they are used for voting, will fall under the membership protection of this thing. Yeah, each Shimmer token represents one membership interest, and this is also a really, really good thing. Here they say the names and addresses of digital ledger or digital ledger identifiers. This is the important thing, because usually in all other legislations and all other DAO entities that we have looked through, yeah, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Cayman Islands, blah, 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 you will actually always have to put up, you have to make a member list. And usually this member list should contain names and addresses of real people that are members of this DAO. And the cool thing in Marshall Island is basically that they accept as a member list our ledger. They say, okay, every address in Shimmer tokens represents a member of this DAO, and they don't ask for any personal identification of any member besides one. Yeah? One person, one single member needs to be identified and not KIC'd, but named and addressed with them. And that's it. All other people, all other Shimmer token holders will never need to reveal their identity towards the Marshall Island government in any case. And that's really the really one of the best things that we can get from this Marshall Island thing. Yeah, and so the only thing that we'll do, this initial members, so basically the 5 Grand Committee members, they will be named as initial members, and they will be named in Exhibit R, is like an attachment to this document. But nobody else from the community and no token holder will ever need to reveal their identity as long as they don't own more than 10% of the Shimmer supply. So, and as no entity currently, and we don't know in the future, but in the moment, nobody owns, not a single address owns more than 10% of the Shimmer tokens. So nobody will have to identify or KIC themselves with the thing. And then we only have one class of memberships. So basically, there are no differences here. They're all the same. Rights and duties of members. All members who have not disassociated themselves shall be entitled to vote on any matter submitted to a vote at a meeting via writing or via token-based voting on layer 1 mainnet or token-based voting on any layer 2 connected to the Shimmer mainnet. So basically, this means all Shimmer tokens in existence, doesn't matter if they are on the Tangle or on any smart contract chain that is connected to the Tangle, are eligible to take part in governance decisions and votes of this organization. And a really, really good thing, I think this is one of the things that I like the most, is that we can define, and we have it here, according to the procedures and rules contained in Exhibit B. And Exhibit B will be a link to our decided governance framework and to the Shimmer Treasury specifications. So basically the things that the people have voted on and accepted and that we have as a group together here defined over the last 8 months. We will put them in a GitHub repo and we will link to this GitHub repo and make the things in this GitHub repo governing rules and law of this operational agreement. And as we are, as community, free to define these rules, yeah, we can change them. We can make a proposal in the governance process and say, okay, we want to have a different voting system, or we want to change this and that. We are free to change them on ourselves without changing all the time this operational agreement again. I think we have something that every 5th change, we need to make one update of this agreement. But basically, we link to the stuff that we have in GitHub, and the stuff that is in GitHub is always the ruling, the set of rules that applies for all decisions that this DAO is doing. And that's I really like that. That's pretty a cool thing, because I've seen a lot of stuff in other DAOs where you have to write it all down, and you have to also follow. Sometimes they have some specific rules that they want to enforce on you. So they want to enforce you to have a 2/3 majority, or they want to have to enforce you that a vote is only valid if you have a minimum participation of 50% of all tokens and things like this. They don't care about all that. We can set our own rules and we can change our own rules, how we do voting and how we do decision making in the network and in this organization. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really makes it efficient. It's going to save from having to pay to get it updated, having to pay to get a lawyer to do a revision. And I think the real key thing is you'll see that a lot. Refer to Appendix B in this process, which ultimately is saying, the framework by the community governs this operating agreement, which ultimately governs anything that the committee can or cannot do, which is ultimately what Marshall Islands allows, and really I don't think anyone else. I mean, we haven't looked at all of them, but certainly not Liechtenstein and Switzerland does not allow. So it's really cool about that.
They usually all have basically what they do is they take their corporate law, how you govern a normal LLC. Yeah, so you have the board, and the board have to make a decision with this, and then there are veto rights, and they take just what they have and what they use for normal companies and put it and write, okay, now this also applies for crypto, which is the very, very uncomfortable thing if you try to set up a DAO in most legislations, that they try to enforce their corporate thinking onto this new form of organization, which is kind of, yeah, it's really not flexible. And Marshall Island is extremely flexible in here. And here we define it again, the vote procedures. So Exhibit B, what we said, this is basically the document that links to GitHub, describes the vote procedures. Vote procedure A is the main vote procedure. It shall be used for any governance vote of the company, except for those matters which shall be decided according to vote procedure B. So basically, vote procedure A is the governance framework, the big master document that we have created first, that describes all how a proposal, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, use the governance forum, have a poll, use Firefly, have this kind of quorum, have 50%, all these rules that we have set out in this long document are procedure R, and they are the governance rules for all decisions of the company, except those that are defined in vote procedure B. And vote procedure B are the rules that we have specified for the Treasury Committee. So we have the proposal how the Treasury Committee should operate, where we have that they need to have a multisig, that there are 5 members, that they have this point system to score and to make decisions if a grant will be given out or not, and all these rules. They have to do the KIC, the conflict of interest probe. Everything is there in procedure B, and here it's really stated by law that this is the governing rule that this whole operation has to follow. And so with these little sentences, basically we have defined that these are the only 2 documents that are the legit rules of this whole thing. Then here this whole thing is basically, this describes that we put it in GitHub, how it will, it's details, but basically the thing will be in GitHub, and every 5th change will be updated also here in the document. Important point, liability of members. No member shall be liable as such for the liabilities of the company. The failure of the company to observe any formality or requirements relating to the exercise of its power or management or blah, 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 shall not be grounds for imposing personal liability on the members for liabilities of the company. And this is the super important thing that basically protects those that act for the company as voters or as grant reviewers or as managing members or whatever, from a personal liability. So all the liability goes to the LLC, but not to an individual member. Blah, blah, blah. Then basically it goes over and it defines the grant committee. And here we have a sentence that you will also read quite often. It says, the ordinary and usual decisions concerning business affairs of the company as defined in the Shimmer Community Treasury Grant Committee specification, which is contained in Exhibit B, shall be made by the Grant Committee comprising of 5 members. Meaning, the day-to-day business of operating the grant program shall and should and is and will be decided only by the grant committee members following the specification that we have designed in the proposal. So these are the rule sets that they have to follow when they make usual and, how they say it, ordinary and usual decisions, everyday work of the grant committee. That's not something that the community needs to care about and influence and vote on every day what they need to do. They follow the rules that we have defined in the proposal, and this is the rulings, the set of rules that the grant committee specifically needs to work with. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so this is the important thing. We put in the multisig thing that they have to operate a multisig wallet with 3 out of 5 signatures. We define what the program lead is and what his duties and competencies are. Yeah, this is taken directly from the proposal for the Treasury Committee. There's nothing new here. Maybe I changed some word for better reading, but this is basically directly copied from the proposal for the Community Treasury Committee, and we just put it here again as a paragraph in the operational agreement. How the program lead will be contracted by the LLC, yeah, on the basis of a service contract. The co-lead will sign this contract on behalf of the LLC. So basically, the lead will have to sign a contract with the company, but of course, on behalf of the company, somebody has to sign. So the co-lead will be the signer for the contract of the program lead. The program lead will do a KIC. Then we have the grant reviewers. So the 4 grant reviewers are defined. Their primary duties and competencies are defined. We have defined how to add or remove or replace a grant reviewer because we have the thing with the conflict of interests. This is something that we defined here a little bit more specific than we did it in the framework because it's actually important from a legal side how a temporary member will get into the committee and also get out of the committee again. Yeah, you know, when we have a proposal for a grant, but there is one of the reviewers has a conflict of interest, meaning this reviewer cannot take part in any discussions or decisions about around this grant. Depending on how much they ask, you sometimes need all 5 reviewers. You will need 5 reviewers to make a decision if this grant will be granted. Meaning that you will have to take one of the runner-up candidates, so from the vote, and add them as grant reviewer number 5 for the one that has the conflict of interest. Here it is basically defined how this process will work, that this runner-up candidate will move into the committee only for working on this specific proposal. And once this is done, this extra added committee member will be out again, and the other one will keep his seat, but cannot take part in the decisions around this grant proposal. This is a little bit lawyer speaking here, but I think it's good that we have cleared and defined it a little bit more in detail here.
What if there's 2
Then
reviewers?
then the runner-up and the next runner-up. So basically, I think we made here a little example. So if you need 2, then you take the number 5, and then you take the number 6. If they're not available, you take number 7. I mean, we have up to 10 potential candidates. So if nobody, you will have to go up to 10. If you don't find anybody, then don't know. Have to wait for 2 weeks until somebody is available or something like this. Quite
Got it.
unlucky, but we have 10 candidates that will be part of the vote of the community, and so these are the ones that we can use for the selection. I think we even, yeah, here we write it, yeah. Shall be based on the result of the member vote in which the grant committee have been initially selected. EA, the next available runner-up candidate based on the vote results, the program lead will approach the candidate with the fifth highest count, ask to be added. If this is unavailable, he will go to number 6. If they are not available, you need to go to number 7, and so on until you find one that has no conflict of interest and is available to work on this specific proposal. Same thing here with the contracts. Yeah, so there will be a service provider contract for the grant reviewers. The co-lead needs to be selected, and these are all the things that we also had defined already in the specification. We just put it here also. KSC for the co-lead. Then the terms. Here we define that it's 12 months from the act of appointment as indicated in Exhibit B. Exhibit B, again, is referring to the vote procedures that we have set. Basically means with the day of the election of the grant committee, they have a mandate for 12 months. Unless one of the following will occur, yeah, the grant committee will be disassociated. Somebody resigns from being a grant reviewer. Somebody is removed by a vote of the members. So we have this option basically that the community can make a proposal to remove a grant reviewer. So they always have the saying and the possibility to do this. Or if the community decides to shut down the whole thing, of course, then also the contracts will end earlier than this 12 months. Another legally important thing is the authority of a member to bind the company. basically sign legal binding contracts on behalf of the LLC, of this DAO. And here the rights to do this is given only to the program lead, and if the program lead is unavailable, the co-lead. Yeah, and we defined it quite basically here. If the program lead is incapacited to the extent that the program lead cannot perform the functions of a program lead and is unlikely to regain that capacity within a reasonable time, then the co-lead has the authority to bind the company. And they shall only bind the company following a valid vote by members according to paragraph exhibit blah blah blah, or in case of ordinary and usual decisions concerning business affairs of the company as defined in exhibit B. And this again will be defined in exhibit B, means the daily operational work of the grant committee if it is necessary to sign a contract with a team for a grant payout or stuff like this. This is what they are allowed to do, but they are not allowed to do to purchase a yacht from on the Bahamas from the money that they have here, because it's not something that is stated in the rules and in the rules of the framework. So here we clearly give them some rights to make some executive acts and decisions, but it is always limited to what the community has agreed and voted on in the specification and in the proposal to establish the committee, and they are not allowed to do anything else with this power. Removal of the grant committee may be removed by blah 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 on a member vote, provided like we have stated it here. Election of a new grant committee, again as specified in the Shimmer Treasury grant committee specifications. When the 12 months expire, the members may elect a new set of grant committee members, or they may not. We will see what's going to happen. Accounting things, record keeping. This is financial stuff that is potentially required by Marshall Island to have some bookkeeping and some basic accountability, which will be done by the committee. Contributions and capital accounts. So when you form a company, you of course also will have to put some money into that company. This initial capital contribution will happen through the infusion of stable coins from the community treasury into the budget of the into the multisig wallet of the committee. And this is basically the start and formation of the company. And these are the initial contributions of capital into this whole thing. The rest here, I think, is all kind of just legal blah 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 things. Nothing that is really special or specific. These are more common, usual legal terms that are used in such contracts, so not something that is really specific. And then also, I think something that we haven't really touched. We trust the lawyer here that these are statements of that are okay for us. Okay, I mean, this is basically the whole thing. Like I said, there will be amendments. One of these will be basically the thing that it states who are the initial members, which will be the 5 grant committee, the elected grant committee, and so they will be. I have to talk to Paola how we're going to name them, if we have to put the full name in here, or if it would be okay to sort of say member 1 address, member 2 address, member. But anyway, the program lead and the co-lead will anyway be named and KIC'd, and all other members are publicly known because they are publicly loaded on. So we'll probably put them in here, and then you will have a document that says, okay, the initial contribution of capital is 100,000 USDT from address X to address Y, and the last thing will be that there is a document that says, okay, all vote procedures A and vote procedure B is defined in GitHub repo XY, and that's it basically. Okay. Yeah, this is actually all the things that are part of this agreement. One thing I wanted to run against you, and especially this is the thing with the GitHubs, because currently we have to do a little bit something because we have to create this document in GitHub. Currently, what we have in GitHub is we have two documents. We have where is it? We have the wiki. So currently our specification is hosted in the wiki, where we have where it is, Shimmer, learn, governance. Here we have the two documents. So we have the Shimmer Community Grant Committee. This is still on draft because we're waiting for the vote. And we have the Shimmer we have the Shimmer governance framework. Yeah. These things are currently hosted in this GitHub repo of the IOTA wiki as the last and the official version currently. I am actually proposing, because this is the organization here, is the organization IOTA Wiki. Basically, the people that control this organization is Dr. Electron, Jeron, and a couple of people from the IOTA Foundation that take care of the wiki. I think I'm also. We also have the IOTA Community Organization. But again, here, the IOTA community, the people that control this organization are several people. This is Antonio, this is me, these are other IOTA Foundation members. So my proposal would actually be to create a complete new GitHub organization. We're going to name it however we're going to name the DAO thing, where we will use only for these legal documents, and where we will only give access and rights to, I don't know. My proposal would be I will set up this organization with only me, and so basically I put in these documents there, exact copies of what we have now, and put it in the exact legal form that is needed for the Marshall Islands to be the legal and valid part of this operational agreement. And as soon as the grant committee is voted on, the voted committee members will be added to this organization and have also rights to manage, make pull requests, approve pull requests, and change the documents there inside. And so then this whole thing would be completely separated from the IOTA Foundation. I can also move out then there and give this whole thing completely to the grant committee. And then nobody outside of the grant committee would have the possibility to change this, to change any word or any meaning in those documents. And of course, because it's GitHub, all changes will anyway will be recorded. And so the community has always the chance to see if the grant committee did change anything without a community decision there. But I think this might be the most clear way of having a separate thing that is not connected to the IOTA Foundation, not in control of any member of the IOTA Foundation or anybody that has nothing to do basically with the DAO. And I think would likely, I just wanted to throw it out and hear your opinions on that. Yeah, now that's the point for people in this
Yeah,
to talk.
and it's just the same process applies if anyone in the community wants to make a change to those documents, and they would be following the governance framework in the sense going phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 through discourse. And if any of that passes, then once it passes, the committee would make that update, or anyone could then put a pull request, and as long as it matches what was approved, then the committee would approve it. And in governance, you can do where what more than maybe the program lead and the co-lead both have to approve it, or at least one of them have to
you can
approve it,
even
or something
make you can make that you need four approvers for any change, and that's a good thing in
Yeah.
GitHub. You can really very clearly define those rules. And the good thing is that because if we keep it in the IOTA wiki thing, these documents, I mean the documents will also stay in the IOTA wiki because they are displayed in the IOTA wiki, so they will be there as a copy. But if you just keep it there, theoretically, he won't do it, but theoretically, Dr. Electron could just go on and change the text of these documents without anybody recognizing it that is not checking it. Yeah. So the owners of this organization can change this whole thing even without a pull request, depending how the organization is set up, but you can force push stuff as the owner of this thing, and then you would have changed it, and it would potentially lead to problems and stuff like this. And so I think the clearest thing would really be to have an own GitHub organization for the treasury once it is established, where only the things that are important for the treasury are documented, also legally, because this is a legal document. It's part of this government document, and it will link to something. So it needs to be very, very, very bulletproof and very, very unforgeable. What I will have to do is there should not be any links to any other documents in this GitHub thing, because as soon as you have a link to another document and somebody else changes the content of that link that's part of your legal agreement, you already have a change. And so that's the thing why I have to remove all the links to external things, have to put everything into this Exhibit B document in the form that is required by the Marshall Islands, so that they can click on there, they can read through it. There are no uncertain or no unclear things. There are no external factors involved that could change any meaning of this thing. And I think this would be legally the safest way to operate this whole stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's ultimately the big first step for the community to work autonomously on its own without the IOTA Foundation, which is a big step in the 5 years of the protocol evolving. It's pretty cool.
It's not a big thing. I mean, there will be likely people voted into the Treasury Committee that can handle GitHub a little bit. It's not. I also learned it with a little bit painful help, but yeah. So it's not something that you will have to work every day. I mean, they're probably going to be every 2-3 months a little change in a text or something like this. So it's not something that will require any special work or qualification. It just needs to be clear, and it just needs to be protected from unauthorized changes from outsiders. And so I think it would be quite the easiest and best way to have this organization, like I said, to have it there, because when we send it in, it needs to be already there in the document. I could just create it, put all the things there in place, have Paolo and then Adam check through if this is acceptable by the government, and once the Treasury Committee is voted on, give over this whole organization rights to the voted in committee. I move myself completely out, and then it's in the hand of the DAO to keep the thing up to date and to take care of all the documents changes once there has been a vote by the community. That's, I think, the best way to operate that. Good. What else? We had some. We're still not clear with the names, I think, yeah. But I mean, we had some valid concerns. Let's say it like this. I liked that people have spoken up and also brought a couple of new ideas. Um, haven't seen much response on that, so not sure. I understand that people say that, okay, calling it again Tangle something something is maybe a bit boring or maybe also a bit not the best branding. There are opposing views on that. So I really say if anybody has a really good idea for a name for this treasury, please post it in somewhere and please propose something. So there's still time. Yeah, it's not, you don't need to fix on a name now. But if there are no other good suggestions coming around, and we'll probably can do another poll or another poll, then in the end we will fall back to what most people already like, which is I think Tangle Community Treasury. Yeah. JD, this was likely the
Yeah.
most liked and the most voted on. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much every vote that comes up to be the number one by a
Yeah.
large majority. And I mean, I've looked at other ones too. It's very, I mean, pretty much almost everyone, like even Polygon Village. I mean, it sounds snazzy, but it still uses Polygon name. So, and I was thinking like, could we use like Cambria or Cambrian, from the Cambrian explosion? But then
Yeah.
I spent like an hour with ChatGPT coming up with different things,
We,
but it just, I don't know.
hey, we could call it Stardust DAO, or Chrysalis DAO or something like this. Yeah, I mean, this might still even actually this might work. Might be some because this might be something that the community can relate to. Yeah? But in the end, you see, kind of Tangle, kind of everybody likes it somehow. Even
Yeah,
if
I mean,
there are reasons to say, yeah, it's not really a great word for an organization to be chaotic and disorganized and entangled but yeah, for us it means something different. Yeah, from the outside it might sound strange, but yeah, don't know.
Yeah, call it Chat GPT DAO. Make cancel the vote. Cancel the vote. Make it just 5 Chat GPT instances. Put them in charge of all funding and see what happens.
Mid Journey LLC.
right. I mean, I think, and there was a statement concerning commingling. And just to be clear, commingling is mixing accounts. So if you have two bank accounts, such as real estate, you have two different real estate properties, you're not allowed to commingle. You're not allowed to take deposits from one real estate property and put it in the account of the other. So commingling would be taking actually IOTA tokens, selling it to USDT, and somehow putting it in the same USDT wallet that Shimmer USDT conversion is going into. That wouldn't happen. Those accounts would have to be, for accounting purposes, showed separately. And I just found I was struggling with how to publicly show that every transaction. So with a relational database, it's not like Excel. It's not like you could say one cell up and one cell over, take that, and then minus the next transaction. That kind of spun me a little bit, but I found a script that does essentially a running balance total. So let's say we'll take the start value Shimmer of the treasury, and if we take 100,000, then we're going to have to convert that. So it's going to show, hey, on this date, this much Shimmer was sold at this price. for 100,000 USDT. And essentially, we're going to have 4 columns. We're going to have the SMR column, which is the starting balance and then the ending balance. And then we'll have a USDT balance starting and ending. And each of those will have transaction IDs to show that. And then the script will just actually automatically in real time update that. So at any time, someone could look at, okay, what's our balance? And that balance will have to actually match up when you click the transaction ID to see where the Shimmer Treasury is or the USD balance. Those better match up. If they don't match up, then there's some funds that are not public and are not transparent. Okay, so let's take this to the next step. Now all of a sudden we have the IOTA Community Treasury. Regardless if there's 2 committees or 1 committee, it would be a little crazy to have 2 separate websites because you get a following. We're gonna have to maybe do marketing for it, SEO campaign to get it up on top of searches, etc. So to start all over on that would be a little silly. However, just because you have one website, on the back end, you then have essentially 8 columns. You'd have 2 SMRs, 2 USDTs, debits and credits, and then you'd have 2 MYOTAs, and then 2 USDTs. So each of those treasuries are going to have their own running account balances and actually would all be in one database, but it can be shown in the website as 2 different tables. So the front end may be one website where everything funnels in. The back end is where everything gets divided up and separated. So if there's 2 committees, hey, maybe we say a question on the web form. Does your project is it going to build on IOTA or is it going to build on Shimmer? If they choose IOTA, then okay, it goes to the IOTA committee. If it chose Shimmer, it goes to the Shimmer committee. Maybe we'll say, hey, we only want these type of categories, like maybe we only want risky DeFi projects to go to Shimmer, want protocol marketing or development to go to the IOTA. We really could create that flexibility when it comes time that we want to start incorporating the IOTA Treasury down the road. So there will not be any commingling because we have to be 100% transparent. Every single SMR, every single USDT that's spent has to be accounted for, or else there's really no point of doing this. Wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and still you could run 2 treasuries under the same organization. This would just, of course, be a change to operation agreement. You would have to amend things and include IOTA token holders for votes on the IOTA side and Shimmer token for this. This is then just some change and legal work to update this agreement to include a second treasury, but it would be, in my opinion, would be possible. Not a super complex thing. Yeah. So just like I said, of course the funds would always need to stay separated and accounted for separated, but that's also not a super complex task.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone out there? Something that we need to explain, should explain? Nope. Very well. No problem. If everybody's happy with this, I would say let's finish it off now. Was nice. Yeah.
Update on Firefly there.
Yes. Update on Firefly. So we got this morning. We got a new last beta release of the Firefly with like all the bug fixes and changes they did from the last one. I tested it this morning and directly run into another bug. It's not a new. I'm not sure if it's a new bug, but it was kind of. I had it before already, like 2 weeks ago. It was kind of still there. It was a bit weird, but they have all my logs from the wallet, so they should be able to fix this quite quickly. And you also see how they were writing it to Ditty, and they're all very, very fortunate and seem quite confident that they are really extremely close from a mainnet release with this thing. Potentially, if I wouldn't have found something in this morning, we could have a release for Friday or something like this. So I would assume let's let them double fix stuff, and let us test over the weekend. Um, but from my gut feeling, and that's not an ETA or something, I would say we can prepare for a vote beginning of next week. Yeah. So if there is nobody else finds anything strange, and I will just stop testing. I will just not touch it anymore.
Yeah,
Because I
don't test any.
always it's probably just my local setup or something. I don't know. I always find stuff. But anyway, so it looks really, really fortunate that we'll have a Firefly voting release and also NFT release. That's the other pretty big, cool feature that they put together. Very, very,
Is
very, very soon. So yeah.
is can't remember. Is in this release, are they testing the L1, L2 transactions, or
They are. It's implemented. It's implemented.
okay, okay, okay,
It's implemented. So you will be able to send tokens to the EVM with this Firefly release. I mean, of course, this is
and it's kind of
a very important
paired.
feature that we will need very soon. So yeah,
Yeah, it's ready for EVM once it
yeah,
releases, which
yeah.
would be nice.
I mean, you
Nice.
can do it already with the beta version. You can send
Mm.
Shimmer tokens to both EVMs, the ones that you know and the ones that currently only we know. Um, it's all possible. You can send it there. You can also send it back from the EVM to the Shimmer wallet. You can send NFTs to the EVM and back. It's all there already in the wallet. So yeah, that's stuff that's coming out then together with the voting very, very soon.
Mm.
Yeah, cool. That's basically all I can tell you today. We will hopefully see you again next Thursday. Potentially already voting or with the start of the vote or whatever. And then we'll move forward step by step with all the things that we have prepared. Thanks, everyone. It was nice that a couple of people joined in and have been listening to this a little bit dry legal stuff, but I think it's good. I mean, we have the recording, people can watch it and can. If you have any comments, I mean, the document is linked in the governance channel. You can leave comments in the document. You can leave comments or questions in the governance channel, in the discussion thread there. However, yeah, if there's any feedback on the document, let us know. Good, we had Node Runner already make a comment or had a question. He's a lawyer from Switzerland, so that's stuff that we're going to check with Paolo and see if there is something we can improve there. Yeah, if you have any additional comments or requests or want to know anything, just ping me, tag me, or JD or somebody, and we'll be happy to continue working on that thing. And like I said, we'll have to wait for the vote to happen before we can formally engage with the Marshall Island thing. I mean, we could engage now if we could ask Dom to send 10,000 US dollars there, but if then the community decides to not establish a treasury, this 10K would probably be gone. So that's not something that we're going to do. We're going to
Yeah.
wait until there is a decision from the community, and then this whole thing will be brought to the road and will be sent on its way, hopefully. Yeah. Well, my friends. Until then, have a nice Thursday morning, afternoon, evening, and see you next week. And if you have the time, test the Firefly beta version. Yeah, try out stuff. So we don't want to run into any problems with the real release then. So if anyone has a couple of time to test stuff out, also it's cool because you can do all the NFT stuff in Firefly now. Yeah, test it, send stuff around, do some governance votes, and then we can be sure that this whole thing can be released next week. Alrighty. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.